Hi everyone, my name is Shabazz and I'm here with Mitko.
Hi everyone.
Hi. I've been working in technology for a long time in hardware and software development, IoT as well. And Mitko, do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, actually, I also worked 2 decades in different companies. We have met with Shabazz working at the same networking company, I think 15 years ago or something. Then I worked at cloud companies, and also we had a startup in between. So we've got all the enterprise and the entrepreneurial experience.
And today we're going to be talking about the metaverse. And,
Yay!
yeah, and like straight off, what is the metaverse? Because I looked, and for example, Wikipedia has the worst explanation of it ever. It kind of just discusses that metaverse is to do with gaming, and it doesn't actually talk much beyond that. Although it does mention, like in a sentence or two, that it could be to do with productivity and healthcare. But what I mean, is it the same as the internet plus virtual reality, or what?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because today, if you ask 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different answers. What's metaverse for them? Because it's still not made. I mean, nobody actually have achieved something that we can actually put a milestone and say, okay, that's the metaverse. It's an open for interpretation. And as you said, it's different thing for different people. But there are obviously some guidelines and some guardrails that we have agreed upon. First, obviously, there are going to be multiple metaverses. So it's like in the movies. It's not going to be one single metaverse, but there is going to be, let's say, the commercial metaverse. There will be gaming metaverse. There will be industrial metaverse. And they will be loosely connected to certain points.
Interesting. Right. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, it didn't really make much sense to me just reading that Wikipedia example of it. So that's kind of making a bit more sense now. And like for people, I mean, I think the other thing is it's a bit hard for people to understand if not many people have used VR headsets and things like that. And is that going to be the way to access the metaverse, or are there going to be other ways to access it?
I mean, definitely what we spoke about with different experts in the area, the human world will interact somehow with the physical world. And we obviously have that analog interaction even today. But all these new digital tools are actually providing much more ways for the physical world to get visualized and to be more interactive. Like you can have machines, you can have games. And obviously, you can access them via different types of interfaces. And it doesn't mean that if you want to be part of the metaverse, you need to be fully immersive and fully 3D. No, for sure. So you can also have this 2D visualization. Let's say if it's the industrial metaverse, that could be any kind of business intelligence of any kind of operational dashboard. And you can still be a human interacting through this visualization layer. Then obviously, there is going to be a lot of intelligence inside the digital platform. So a lot of capabilities of creating the simulations, all these relations and data modeling and data storage. And obviously, there is going to be another layer which is going to connect the humans through this digital kind of almost like a ring around them to connect them with the actual device in the physical world, with any machinery, with sensors, with assets. So if I say the metaverse will be like the human is in the center, so it's very human-centric, obviously. And then you have as one layer around the human world, which is kind of representing different ways to interact, different ways to work with the processes, different ways to work with any kind of information, which could be a dashboard, which could be a natural language processing, 3D tools, virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality. And then on the outside, you also have this physical world where you have the assets, the machines, the sensors, everything.
Interesting. I suppose this must relate very closely to digital twins, right? Where you would want to be able to represent industrial machinery or anything around you, and have that representation in the computer in storage somewhere.
You're spot on. So definitely in that digital layer, there should be digital twin, and with all the relation information between the objects, ways to understand the historic data, and ways to actually use these digital twins to build simulations, and giving you all these possibilities actually to simulate specific process or specific asset, how they're going to develop in time because of different conditions, because of different way of using them.
Right. So I suppose that's probably one thing organizations should be doing then right now, right? To prepare to make sure that they do have digital twins of all of their important assets, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually an excellent remark, Shabazz. Building digital twins of the assets and then having this model where you can actually structure the information, structure the relations around them, actually can give a lot of competitive advantage in a number of different areas for companies. Like if they want to start providing extra digital services like preventive maintenance, etc. Speaking about the industrial metaverse, definitely the digital twin is a must. It is something that the companies need to look at and implement even today. I mean, there are so many ways to do digital twins.
Right. Yeah, that is super interesting. And are there any public examples that we can talk about? Do you think of organizations that are using digital twins that now already, but also that might help them in the future?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can go deeper into the industrial metaverse because that's probably the area that I know most, because I'm not so strong in the commercial one and the gaming. But in the industrial, definitely there are companies like Bentley Systems, which was acquired by Siemens, which are doing so much interesting stuff with visualization and simulations around any kind of heavy machinery and assets or smart cities, so they can build a digital twin about from everything.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah, it doesn't matter of the complexities. How do you stream the live data into the digital twin? So once you have it built, you also want to have sensors to provide all these extra intelligence and all these extra perception about the assets and the physical world around them. So your digital twin is actually representing all the information in near real time.
Yeah. And how would it work to, like, obviously in future, if you're adding more and more sensors, for example, then the data that you've been collecting, obviously it's going to be more enhanced, it's going to be more richer because you're actually capturing more and updating more. I guess that could be like something that organizations could do with just starting off small and then adding more and more sensors, or connecting up legacy protocols on their machines to start off with, maybe, and then adding more sensors.
You're spot on. I mean, start small, get your hands dirty, understand how it works and how the technology maps to the use cases and the business processes, so you can actually get value out of the digital twins. And that's the good thing. You can start small, as you said, and then obviously grow. You can build digital twin of everything.
Right. And what about I mean, I know you said that it's not all immersive 3D, but that bit is interesting still as well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and I know there was like the HTC Vive that's been around for like ages, right? And then there's that HoloLens.
Yes.
There's a HoloLens too. What? I mean, I've not used any of these. I've used the HTC Vive like briefly, but I've not used HoloLens. And what's that like?
I mean, I literally used everything. I have put a helmet, like an AR helmet, on my head with Ubuntu Linux inside, like hard hat. So, I mean, if there was any kind of visual element that actually can represent the digital world within the physical, if it's augmented mixed reality, I had it on my head.
Okay.
it's super exciting. I mean, definitely it's still expensive. I mean, we have to be also careful with our happiness level, because obviously all these cool gadgets and immersive experiences cost still a lot of money. And until it gets democratized, it will be tough to see metaverse units like the immersive ones, the 3D with the VR and everything on a mass scale. But it will happen. I mean, that's something that we are sure about.
I mean, I can imagine even just like, okay, very niche stuff, but you can imagine like being on an oil rig or something and having, you know, $1 million machinery and things like that, and having someone like be able to help you remotely. And so, you know, you literally stick on the thing on your head and start working immediately without having to wait for an expert to get to the location.
Oh,
You know,
yes.
that kind of stuff could be, you know, really interesting.
Yeah, that's a low-hanging fruit. You're spot on. All these remote assistants, where you can get the expert remotely, and then they can guide you with an immersive view and giving you exactly location or readings of different machines and sensors. That's a low-hanging fruit today. Or any kind of expensive assets, expensive processes. I mean, it's a no-brainer. But if you go to the normal things where we still have like a human in the loop in work processes, it's still kind of expensive. And also people need to get used to having all that digital information in front of their eyes.
Yeah. What is the bandwidth required for this sort of thing? I'm just curious.
Yeah, you're actually hitting all the nails. Like one after the other. I think you did a really good prep work on the discussion.
To be honest, I'm just asking a question I hope others would have as well, because to be honest, I am new to this, but you know, having worked in networking and, you know, being a bit aware about like the bandwidth required for video, I'm just curious. You know, for the metaverse, I can imagine the requirements are quite high, and would that work over 5G, for example, today? Do you think?
Also the latency. So it's not just the bandwidth.
Oh yeah.
Also the latency, streaming data. How do you visualize data? And it will work. It's not going to be like a fully immersive experience if you don't have a low latency edge streaming powered by, let's say, 5G standalone, where you can have the Unreal runtime streaming to your headset literally on the base station 500 meters from you on a very high speed. So definitely the industrial metaverse native infrastructure will be different than the infrastructure we have today if we want to have this immersive experience everywhere. You're spot on. Latency, obviously that's a lot of high-speed data, and even getting the data from machines and then sending commands will require also edge computing. So you don't want to send the data to the hyperscaler and then get it back, and then this latency is just going to kill the whole experience.
Right.
So you would need to rethink the complete infrastructure, starting with the silicon, going to the stack between edge, content delivery networks, cloud, and then more bandwidth, as you said, more bandwidth, low latency. The world is moving in that direction. So we see more and more of these private 5G networks, and we see fiber everywhere. And even in Germany now, you can get like a decent internet connectivity. So the world is progressing well.
Same with the UK, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
I'm finally, I think I'm on 20 megabits per second currently still. But I'm going to upgrade at some point to a faster fiber connection.
I'm on 10 gigs. Maybe I need also faster connection. I just need to get more and faster kind of hard drives, because that's kind of reaching the limit.
You have more data on mobile as well. I can't actually consume much data before I hit a limit, and I have to start paying more.
Yeah, but once you get all these 3D models and you start getting more and more interactive with different processes and machinery, I mean, obviously the data will be there, and networking, low latency networking, and being able to stream and kind of process data, and also all these communication channels, command channels. This will be a must.
And probably this is this is going to be a good driver for for 5G going forward, but also for 6G, right? I guess in a decade's time or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, 5G is good enough for this immersive experience if we want to go in the fully immersive and 3D experience interfaces. But again, as we spoke, the metaverse and the human interacting with the metaverse obviously could be via natural language processing, or it could be via typical 2D elements. So we don't need to go wild when it comes to all these super immersive experiences today.
And what have you been working on in terms of metaverse? What exactly have you been doing? Because I know you have been doing something. I just don't know what.
I mean, since I left the last corporate job a couple of months ago, I said, okay, now is the best time to build. 2023, 2024, these are going to be very hard years. So if you have ways to have cash flow, and your family is safe, probably this is the best time to build new products. And then after we hit the good times in 2025 going forward, sell them to the world. So definitely the last couple of months, we have been working with a friend on this concept of Industrial Metaverse Native Infrastructure, or IMNI as a short name, where we have been looking for different kind of look on the traditional architecture of edge cloud computing, kind of building these Kubernetes-based clusters, which you can place everywhere. You can place them on premises, on the on-premises data center. You can place them with the mobile carrier on top of their edge infrastructure, or you can place them in a hyperscaler. You can choose your own Azure, AWS, or GCP. And then on top of them, you can actually put the streaming servers. So you can choose Unity or you can choose Unreal. You can place all these different IoT communication channels. So you can actually get sensors data at any different point. And also you can send commands to the assets. So you can have low latency video, high bandwidth streaming, and you can have fully integrated Internet of Things communication. Obviously looking on all these new standards around HTTP3, QUIC, everything which is with web transport, because obviously latency and security in real time, these are key elements for the industrial metaverse infrastructure to be successful.
Yeah, do you want to elaborate on that transport? Because I think that'll be new to people as well. It was new to me.
Yeah, the world is moving to UDP. I mean, joke on my CCA certification, where we have been looking on all these stateful mechanisms and all these conform deliveries and everything with TCP. Obviously now everything around video, since this is probably the biggest load on top of any kind of network today. Even on the enterprise networks, the video is becoming substantial. So everything is moving to UDP and all these new standards around HTTP3 and all these new mechanisms actually to embed the TLS handshake within all the communication channels. So you have faster connection, you don't have any latency, and everything which is upcoming with the web transport. So think about web sockets on steroids, where you can have the video, you can have the time series data, you can have the commands within a single encrypted web transport session with minimum latency and minimum penalty on the hardware. This is just opening so many possibilities.
Yeah, is it like do you remember SCTP, where you could have like multiple streams almost?
But
yeah. Sounds interesting.
faster to build a TLS channel, obviously, and then you can push a lot of different content, types of content within the same pipe.
Brilliant. Yeah, that is. I want to play an experiment with that actually, because I remember you did mention that a while back. And, yeah, that was interesting.
That's the thing. The industrial metaverse native infrastructure will actually require this completely new view on everything. We just did the episode with the chips. Obviously, that's one of the steps. Then looking on the networking interfaces, then looking on the firmware choices, then looking on these communication protocols, like everything which can do high bandwidth, low latency, secure connectivity. Then looking for anything to orchestrate applications like Kubernetes, any kind of mechanisms with WebAssembly and WebAssembly system interfaces. So you have this orchestration and management of applications, effective mechanisms to do streaming data, and also to manage data at rest with this fantastic new data lakehouses as a technology. So you can actually process the industrial metaverse data whenever the data resides. So this is that's the infrastructure. It starts with the silicon, goes to connectivity, firmware, all the elements needs to kind of improve.
Yeah, and this actually sounds, the metaverse actually sounds like a really good driver for wanting to have the Kubernetes pods, down to the site level. So not just in the cloud.
Yeah, even smaller. I mean, even if you want to have a mechanism to do any kind of extra streaming or inference of models, or if you want to do any kind of these advanced algorithms on smaller devices where Kubernetes API is way too heavy, then there are so many different ways to use WebAssembly. And you can have this kind of containers and container management for the applications and life cycle and scale. So different ways to optimize.
I think most like not sysadmins, but people who work on orchestration with Kubernetes, I think a lot of them might not have realized that there is this requirement to be able to have it geographically, not just geographically separated, but down to a into like enterprise site level, like you're mentioning. So that's probably quite a new thing. What are the difficulties there? Like, have there been issues with because that's obviously, I mean, we may not be a layer 2 connection there. Is that an issue with Kubernetes? Because I've not actually deployed it, so I'm not sure on that.
I mean, obviously Kubernetes is really good for the light edge device and heavy edge devices where you can have like a PC level devices with 4 gigabytes, like 4 gigabytes, I think is a good number as a minimum of memory, and like dual core CPU, and then going up. And it gives you this ubiquitous computing capability for the applications and application management. And also the same kind of methodology to develop these applications for the edge, for the cloud, for the on-premises data centers. Obviously, everyone is building different applications for the PC on the edge and then for the data center and for the cloud. But the methodology, the DevOps process, CI/CD pipelines are kind of the same.
Okay.
And then that's something which is happening today. I mean, looking on the market now, everyone is kind of thinking how they can optimize the development, delivery, and operations process of their existing applications, like all these line of business monolithic apps with millions of lines of code. So microservices came on the rescue, and they're getting a lot of attention. And then the next thing is obviously how do we expand the same mechanism down to microcontrollers? And that's where actually WebAssembly, it still is doing baby steps. So I haven't seen major production deployments with WebAssembly and containers on WebAssembly.
Okay.
But it's just a matter of a year and a half to 2 years that you're going to have the same mechanism from microcontroller to the PC to the server to the data center on premises.
That's amazing. Yeah.
To cloud. It's a really exciting time to be in infrastructure. Finally.
Yeah.
It was exciting at the beginning when we moved to kind of optics, etc., like 20 years ago, and now it's the second wave with the metaverse.
That's really cool. And what if people did want to develop applications for metaverse, how would they go about it? I mean, is it worth them learning things like Unity, or what else is out there that they should be using to build apps?
I mean, if they want to go into the fully visual and immersive 3D, obviously they have to start with the basics, like how do you build 3D assets, like with the USD type of format files, like universal scene descriptors.
Okay.
So once they understand how to build these USD and build the 3D assets, then obviously they can choose any kind of environment like Unity if they're more on the enterprise side, or Unreal if they're more on the gaming and like cool kids on the block side.
Right.
Yes. So start building and then use the same also as a runtime, so they can actually scale it up and stream it from content delivery networks or from the edge.
Are there already any like frameworks which people could use to accept data, have their digital twin representation of objects, and be able to import in their Unity models, or would they have to do that from scratch today?
I mean, there are probably 10 plus different open standards, and I think every consortium is building their own open standard, and everyone is trying to attract people to use their ways. I've spent a couple of years at Microsoft, and there was this digital twin definition language schema where you can actually use the DTDL to define,
and that's all text-based, so it's really easy to understand.
And there is also one consortium, which is like the Digital Twins Consortium, one of the 10, which is using this DTDL, and with there you can build the model of the assets, the relationship between them, and then you can use platform as a service component, which at Microsoft side is the so-called Azure Digital Twins, ADT, to actually go represent and build it as a platform, and then start connecting external services for storing the data, streaming data, consuming the relationship from the graph, and then build simulations. Again, all these external compute choices.
Right. And what about like in the cloud, like are manufacturers like NVIDIA doing anything interesting for the metaverse? Like,
oh yeah, you're spot on. I mean, I think they're the one owning the true metaverse today. So
okay, good. I'm glad it's not Facebook owning it, because that would put a lot of people off, I think.
That would be bad. So NVIDIA, obviously, they have spent a lot of time not only on the hardware side building the GPUs who power a lot of the visualization and streaming and gaming, but they also invest in a product family which is called the Omniverse, where actually they can you can use the Omniverse nucleus server, and you can run it if you have a beefy equipment on your own, or you can run it on top of the NVIDIA cloud, or you can run it also on the cloud providers, like the big hyperscalers, where you can import the assets based on the USD format, which is like an open standard format, and kind of universal scene description is kind of used across the industry. So you build the assets, and then you can use the Omniverse actually to start building more logic, visualization, all these interactive tools, and get connectors. Because if you have invested already in learning, let's say Unity or learning Unreal, obviously the Omniverse has these connectors, so you can actually start connecting the models that you have already built and consume them. Build, let's say, an entire shop floor in the metaverse where you can get different assets built on top of Unity or Unreal, and then you can use the Omniverse actually to go walk across the factory, see the operational efficiency of the equipment on top of the equipment, visualize on top of you, or interact with the equipment, shut it down, etc. So a lot of cool stuff.
Amazing.
Yeah, they're definitely worthy. I mean, if you're able to find NVIDIA A100 GPUs somewhere, just use them to run the the Omniverse. And
yeah, I think the cheapest A100 server that NVIDIA makes is about the cost of an apartment, I think. Got something like that.
Yeah, that's a good mathematical calculation. I mean, what's the return of buying an A100 server or a flat?
Yeah. You know, the other thing interesting is it's like which organizations, because like we just mentioned NVIDIA, and we were also just mentioned Meta, because that puts people off. Like the Meta sounds very much like Metaverse, but I was thinking if it's like 3D, like USD, things like that, there's probably other companies which maybe today are not involved in Metaverse, but could get involved, and maybe they might end up being big players, like like these animation companies as well, because they might be needed for visualization.
Oh yes.
The same with Unity, because I think maybe when people hear of it, they think that it's just for gaming, and I don't know what proportion of their revenues from gaming and from other verticals, but I'm sure there's other ones are now playing like a growing role now for revenue for them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can share a personal story where you can actually send books to my 3 kids around Unity development, and you actually have picked the right book for the right age. And I told them, like, read these books, you're never gonna be hungry. Go and experiment with Unity and build your own kind of playfield games. Get full understanding. Yeah, so
are they enjoying it?
Yeah, they did. I mean, they
cool.
haven't done that much of game development as I was expecting, but at least they got understanding how the games they're using are working.
Well, that sounds super important, because like if what are the things that kids should be learning? Like I thought it was Python initially, but now I'm thinking, well, it should be Python, and it should be go off and actually make some games, because through doing that they are learning Unity, and that knowledge can then be transferred.
Yeah, and now with all this prompt engineering, maybe also the kids should understand how to use prompt engineering more and more. I really hope we're not the last generation actually coding in C. Because we have produced so much content for these large models to train themselves that now if the kids are smart and they use prompt engineering, they just get everything ready to go.
Yeah.
But back to the metaverse, I have this theory that the true metaverse is going to be this Frankenstein child in between telecom, hyperscaler, and gaming company. So you have the connectivity with all these low latency, high speed choices. You have the unlimited compute of the hyperscaler. And then you have all these 3D assets and gamification to keep the people fully intact and interactive from the gaming. So this is going to be these 3 things that are actually going to give the birth of the true metaverse.
Yeah, that's very clever insight, actually, because to keep people wanting to be productive and do things, then turning that around and making that into like a almost gamifying things, that could help as well, right? And of course they already have all the knowledge on how to do that, how to motivate people.
It's just in the wrong industry. Like if you open the typical industrial dashboard of the big companies, It's really boring. You have to follow a workflow, which you're teach by I don't know how many months, and you do the same repetitive tasks, and that can be fully automated, or you can be part like human in the loop, and then it could be also gamified, so it's not so boring for your daily work. My take is it's a matter of time. So after we go through this crisis, there will be another renaissance, like there was this renaissance in 2003 and going forward, where we're going to see the industrial metaverse and maybe the enterprise metaverse and the gaming metaverse and all the other metaverses really going through the roof. And now also with generative AI and these better capabilities to interact with the digital world, it's going to be really exciting time. Like, I think we live in the best era for the last 2 decades.
I'm convinced now as well. And like especially when we did that, when we had that chat about AI chips and how, for example, like GraphCore, they had to have that vision like 10 years before almost, right? That, and obviously it takes a long time to develop something, and but it's become reality, and it's the same, I think, with the metaverse, where people might still think, oh, it's a few years away, or several, maybe 5 years, 5, 6, 7, 8 years away, but that will happen really quickly, and people have to prepare for that now.
I mean, if you have it in your head, it just takes persistence and time to get manifested to everyone, and obviously to have the business case for others to use it.
And even if people are still thinking, well, maybe metaverse is not relevant, actually it's all of the extra technologies which you've just mentioned as well, which are going to help make metaverse a reality. And so all of those other technologies are useful as well, like you mentioned with for example the telecom technology to be able to have low latency, 5G, the drive to 6G, the new transports which you mentioned.
It's also a matter of time. I'm with you, and I think the time is now. Obviously, these kind of hard times with the COVID and then the war, and like everything over the last couple of years is going a little bit bad for the society and the humanity, but this will end. I mean, it will not go forever. So I think the moment the whole situation improves in 2 years of now, it will just unleash this functionality, these capabilities, the readiness of people to go and use these experiences. And then the industrial metaverse is going to get a real boost. Or the enterprise metaverse, or any kind of other metaverse, obviously.
And I love the fact that even down to the microcontroller level and sensor level, that sensors are going to be like so relevant. Okay, for sure, for the immersive stuff, but even non-immersive, where you're controlling things. So having IMUs, or with accelerometer, gyro, things like that. They're all going to be super important. So high accuracy, new cameras, face tracking, eye tracking, all of that kind of stuff to be able to get that immersive experience.
You're spot on. I mean, without it, you cannot digitize the physical world. You cannot build processes. You cannot have the automation and like all these copilots. let's use the copilot term, but obviously anything that can actually come from the digital world can use sensing to understand the physical world and the dependencies, and then help the people to kind of be better at work and kind of be happier and healthier.
They're definitely exciting.
True.
Awesome. Anything else we should talk about, do you think?
I mean, it's up to you. I mean, you're asking the questions, but I was really amazed how much groundwork you did with kind of studying all these different aspects.
No, thanks. It's exciting.
It is. Now you're fully hooked up on the metaverse, so there is no way out. It's time to...
Yeah, like after a few waves as well of technology, because
yeah,
I mean, I still remember, even like, I'm embarrassed to say, when Wi-Fi came out, and initially thinking, well, how useful is it? Because it does take a bit of vision to realize, well, actually, Wi-Fi is going to be extremely useful, because mobile phones are going to have it. You're going to be connected to the internet, and initially, you thought, well, okay, a person would think that, well, Wi-Fi, why would you really want to use it if you can connect your laptop or whatever up to to a wired connection? So having that vision is like super important, and also like seeing really early on how things could be useful. So I think we have seen that several times now, right? Especially with product development as well, where, because it takes many years to come up with ASICs, for example,
yes,
to develop them and start developing processors for higher throughput, having communication systems with the low latency, high bandwidth, and everything. All of that has to start early so that people can develop these things.
yeah, true. Until it manifests to the world, and then everyone knows how cool it is, and they want to use it.
Yeah.
It just takes time.
Exactly.
And kind of consistency, like being part. Don't give up. Build the systems, and that's the reason I really love this idea of industrial metaverse native infrastructure that we're working on. Obviously, a lot of people are thinking, "Oh, this is too early," and like people don't need it today. But you have to build it today, so people can use it in 2025. It just takes time and persistence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. I think I have nothing else, but I'd be now super curious to see what other people think as well, and what questions they have.
Yeah.
Apologies if I've not asked all the questions that others might have wanted to hear asked.
Yeah, but it's not too late. I mean, if people want to get more episodes, first, if they're experts in the area and they're working actively, I mean, they obviously can join us in an episode where two of us, we can interview them. And also, if we have missed any kind of top of mind question, I mean, obviously they can contact us through the forms at Spotify podcast, Apple Podcasts, or even directly on our LinkedIn profiles. So we're not going away. We're in the metaverse. And we're always open to good feedback and good ideas and good questions.
Absolutely. All right. It was great speaking to you again, Mitko.
As always, Shabazz, thank you.
Cheers. And speak soon.
Yeah,
thanks,
speak
everyone.
soon. Yeah, thanks, everyone. See you.
Bye.
Bye.